Speak English naturally. Think like a native. Introduction. Have you heard people who speak English easily? Their words sound like a flowing river. You understand them and wish you could speak the same way. You want to join talks, share your ideas, and feel good when you speak. But sometimes, when you try to speak, it feels hard. You know the grammar and many words, but your sentences don't sound quite right. You might stop a lot or feel like you are changing every word from your language in your head. This is common for many learning English, and it's okay. You are not alone. The truth is, speaking English well is more than just knowing rules. It's about something deeper. We call this natural English speech. This means speaking English like someone who learned it from birth. It's using common, short words like don't instead of do not and I'm instead of I am. It's using simple phrases that native speakers use without thinking. It's about the sound and flow of words, making speech smooth and easy to hear. It's not just memorizing words or grammar. It's understanding and using how English is spoken every day. This helps you talk better and feel more relaxed. Always changing words in your head is the biggest problem. When you think in your first language and then try to make it English, it's like trying to bike while looking at a map. It makes you very slow. Your sentences might be correct, but they often sound a bit stiff or odd because languages build sentences differently. You also miss out on fun phrases and quick ways of speaking that make English sound lively. The real goal is to think directly in English. When your thoughts are already in English, the words just come out, smooth and easy, without that extra step. This book will help you do just that. We will show you step by step how to stop translating and speak English naturally. We will focus on how native speakers really talk. We will look at common ways of speaking that make English sound real. We will practice with real talks, so you can see and hear how natural English is used. Most importantly, we will help you learn to think in English. This will change how you speak. You will sound more sure of yourself. Your talks will go better, and you will feel more at ease when you speak English. In this book, you will learn the secrets to the rhythm and flow of native speakers. You will learn common phrases and how to use short words and other easy ways that make speech sound natural. We will share ways to help you think in English, and you will find tasks to make your listening and speaking better together. The result? You will be more confident, your English will sound smoother, and you will understand native speakers much more easily. You will be able to join talks and say what you mean clearly and naturally. You want to speak English naturally, and now you have a clear way to do it. Get ready to find your natural English voice and connect with the world in a new way. Let's start this fun trip together. 1. Practicing English conversation. You have spent a lot of time learning the basics. You have learned rules and words. You can likely make good sentences in your mind. That is very good. Now, it is time to use what you know and make it real. It is time to start talking. The best way to do this is by having real talks with people. Think about learning to swim. Reading a book about swimming will not help you float. You must get into the water. Talking in English is the same. Books and lessons are like learning about the water. Talking with others is where you actually swim. It is the best practice. Because talks are not perfect. They are quick and real. You cannot plan every word. You must listen and answer right away. This is how people who speak English as their first language talk. They use short words. They share ideas fast. They might say a or before they speak. It is not perfect, but it helps them connect. When I first started teaching, I met a student named Maria. Maria was very smart. She knew a lot of grammar and she wrote very well. But when she spoke, it was like listening to a very polite robot that spoke slowly. She would stop after every word, trying to find the right word. She would say things like, "I'm going to the store to purchase some food," instead of the more common way, I'm gonna go to the store to get some food. It sounded too formal and it was hard to follow. She was changing every word from her own language in her head. She understood English, but she was not speaking English in a normal way. One day, we talked about her favorite thing to do, painting. She knew all the words for art, but her sentences were long and stiff. I softly said, Maria, try to just talk about it. Do not think about perfect sentences. What do you feel when you paint? She took a deep breath and started again. This time she said, oh, painting it is like letting go, you know? When I have the brush in my hand and the colors it is just me, the world goes away. I just look at the canvas. It was a small moment, but it was a very big moment for Maria. She was using shorter sentences. She used natural pauses. She used words like you know and like. She was also sharing her feelings. This made her sound more like a real person and easier to connect with. This is what we mean by natural English speech. It is not just about knowing the right words. It is about using them in a way that sounds like how people actually talk. It is about using common, short words. It is about using everyday phrases and speaking smoothly without changing words from your own language in your head. It is about understanding how real talks move and sound. This is why practicing conversations will be your special skill. When you talk with someone, you are not just practicing grammar. You are practicing speed. You must think and speak quickly. Listening, you need to understand what the other person is saying right now. Answering, you need to think of an answer right away. Normal phrases. You will hear and start using phrases that people who speak English as their first language use all the time. For example, what's up? No worries, hang on a sec, or that's cool. Rhythm and sound. You will start to hear the music of English. You will notice how people's voices go up and down. You will hear how they say some words louder than others. It is easy to stay in your head, thinking about perfect grammar. But real talks are about connecting with people, not about being perfect. It is about getting your message to someone in a way that feels easy and natural. More than grammar, the sound and flow of English. So, what makes English sound natural when we speak? It is more than just knowing the right words. It is about how the language sounds. Think about your own language. When you speak it, you do not even think about it, right? It just comes out. It has a rhythm, a flow. English has this too, and it is very important for sounding natural. People who speak English as their first language do not speak like robots. They do not say each word clearly and with the same loudness. Our speech is more like a song. Some words are said with more force, and some are said very softly. This is called intonation and stress. For example, look at this sentence. I really want to go. When someone who speaks English as their first language says this, they use more energy, more sound, and a slightly higher voice on the word really. The other words are softer. This stress helps show what is most important in the sentence. If you say every word with the same energy, it sounds boring and not natural. Then there are fillers. These are words or sounds we use when we are thinking. Things like, you know well. You might think these are bad, but they are actually a sign of natural speech. They give your brain a moment to catch up. They also let the other person know you are still thinking and have not finished speaking. If you do not use any fillers, your speech can sound too fast or too practiced. It is like Maria's robot-like speech at first. Hesitations are also natural. Sometimes we stop for a second before we speak. Or we might start a sentence, stop, and then start again with a different idea. This is completely normal. It shows you are thinking and choosing your words carefully, but in a natural, human way. Interjections are short words or sounds that show feelings. Wow. Oh no. Ouch. Hey. These add a lot of life and feeling to our speech. When you start to notice and use these things, the stress, the rhythm, the fillers, the hesitations, the interjections, your English will start to sound much more like someone who speaks it as their first language. You will be speaking with the flow of English, not just the words. Practice for different levels. Not everyone learning English is at the same stage. What works for someone who is just starting might be too hard for someone more advanced, and the other way around. That is why it is important to practice conversations that are right for you. We can think of these levels like this. Beginner A1, A2. At this stage, you are learning basic phrases and words. Your talks will likely be about simple, everyday topics. You might practice ordering food, asking for directions, or talking about your family. The goal here is to feel comfortable saying words in short sentences without being too afraid. Practice idea. Use simple question and answer games. You can even practice by yourself, pretending you were talking to someone. For example, ask yourself, "What's your name?" And then answer, "My name is Alex." Keep it short and focus on saying words clearly. Intermediate B1, B2. This is where you can start to have more detailed conversations. You can talk about what you think, what you have done, and understand more complex ideas. You will still make mistakes, but you can usually share your meaning. This is a great level to really focus on natural English speech by using more common phrases and understanding the rhythm. Practice idea. Find someone to talk with. You can talk about hobbies, movies, books, or recent events. Try to use phrases you have learned. Do not be afraid to ask the other person, "How do you say this naturally?" Or "What is another way to say that?" This is where using short forms like "I'm" instead of "I am" and "don't" instead of "do" not becomes very important. Advanced C1, C2. At this level, you can talk about difficult topics. You can understand small differences in meaning. You can express yourself smoothly and without planning. Your goal is to understand cultural differences and special phrases. You want to speak with the highest level of naturalness. Practice idea. Have debates or discussions on harder subjects. Watch English TV shows or movies and try to copy the natural speech patterns of the actors. Focus on using a wider range of words and more complex sentences, but always with that natural flow. The main thing is to challenge yourself just enough. If a conversation is too easy, you will not learn much. If it is too hard, you might feel sad. Find that middle point where you are learning and getting better. Listening carefully and responding well. Talking is not just about speaking, it is also about listening. Really, truly listening. Many people learning a language focus so much on what they are going to say next that they do not fully hear what the other person is saying. This is a big reason why conversations can feel disconnected or why we miss important clues. Active listening means paying full attention to the speaker. 1. Focusing. Put away things that distract you. Give the speaker your full attention. 2. Understanding. Try to grasp not just the words, but the meaning behind them. What is the speaker feeling? What are they really trying to say? 3. Showing you listen. Show that you are listening. You can do this by nodding, looking at the speaker, or using small sounds like "aha," "I see," or "really." 4. Remembering. Try to remember what the speaker said, so you can talk about it later in the conversation. When you listen carefully, you will notice things that help you speak more naturally. You will pick up on common phrases, the rhythm of their speech, and how they move from one idea to another. Responsive speaking is what you do after you have listened. It is about giving an answer that shows you have thought about what was said and that it is related. Instead of just waiting for your turn, you are adding to what the other person said. Let us say your friend says, "I had a really tough day at work." An answer that is not responsive might be, "Oh, okay. I went shopping today." This is a bit disconnected. A responsive answer would show you heard them and feel for them. "Oh no, I am sorry to hear that. What happened?" Or "That sounds hard. My day was okay, but I am glad to hear from you. Tell me about it." See the difference? Responsive speaking makes the conversation flow. It shows you are involved and interested. This back and forth is the heart of natural conversation. It is how we build understanding and connection, using resources for real practice. So, how do you actually find these conversations to practice? The good news is, there are more ways than ever. Language exchange partners, websites and apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, or Conversation Exchange connect you with people from all over the world who want to learn your language in exchange for teaching you theirs. This is a great way to get real practice with people who speak English as their first language and who understand what it is like to learn a language. Remember to be patient with each other. You are both there to learn. Conversation groups. Many cities have local groups, often advertised online or at community centers, where people meet to practice speaking English. Some might be free, while others might have a small cost. This is good for practicing in a group and meeting new people. Online platforms and tutors. Platforms like Italki or Perply offer one-on-one lessons with people who speak English as their first language or with experienced teachers. You can find teachers who focus on conversation practice. This might cost money, but it is a very good way to get personal feedback and focused practice. Online forums and communities. Join online groups related to your interests like games, books, cooking, etc. 2. Different levels of English speaking. Learning a new language is like climbing a mountain. You start at the bottom, and with each step, you see more. Speaking English is similar. It's not one thing you learn all at once. It's a trip with different parts, and knowing these parts helps you know where you are and where you are going. This is very true when we talk about speaking English in a way that sounds natural. Think about it. When you first start learning English, your main goal is for people to understand you. You want to say "I like pizza" and have someone understand. That's great. But as you get better, you start to notice things. You hear people who speak English all the time say things differently. They use shorter words, different ways to form sentences, and it all sounds smooth. That's the natural English speaking we want. It's not about knowing more rules of grammar. It's about sounding like you belong in the talk. Let's look at some common steps people talk about when learning English. You might have heard terms like B1, B2, or C1. These are like stops on our mountain climb. At the B1 step, you are what we call a speaker who is in the middle. You can handle many everyday things. If you go to a store, order food, or ask for where to go, you can usually do it. You can talk about what you like to do, your family, or your job. You can share your thoughts, but maybe in simple ways. You might say, "I think this movie is good because the story is interesting." That's good. You are sharing your ideas. But at this step, you might still make some mistakes. Your sentences might be a bit short, and you might stop to find the right words. You are probably still thinking a little in your own language and then trying to say it in English. This is normal. The main goal here is to be clear. Natural speaking at this step means using common short words like don't instead of do not, and using simple, everyday phrases. Now, imagine you have climbed a bit higher, reaching the B2 step, which is upper middle. This is where things start to feel much more natural. You can speak more smoothly without long stops. You can understand longer and more complex talks. You can join in discussions and share your ideas more easily. You start to use more different sentence shapes. Instead of just "the movie is good because the story is interesting," you might say, "I really like this movie. The story was very interesting and kept me watching." You are not just changing words from your language, you are starting to think in English more. Natural speaking at the B2 step means using more common phrases that native speakers use all the time, and your sentences start to connect more smoothly. Your speaking starts to have a more natural rhythm. And then there is the C1 step, which is advanced. This is like reaching a beautiful view on the mountain. At this step, you can use English well and easily in almost any situation. Parties, school, or work. You can express yourself smoothly and without thinking too much. This means you can chat, argue, and explain difficult ideas without having to stop and look for words very often. You can understand hidden meanings and even jokes. Natural speaking at the C1 step means using special phrases where the meaning is not clear from the individual words, like it's raining cats and dogs, which means it's raining very hard. You understand and use different tones of voice, and you connect your thoughts in very smart ways. It's about sounding truly comfortable and sure of yourself. The important thing to remember is that natural English speaking is not the same at every step. What sounds natural for a B1 speaker might sound a little too simple for a C1 speaker. And what a C1 speaker says might be too hard for a B1 speaker to fully understand or use. The quality and how complex naturalness is grow as you get better. So, how does the way you think in your own language and change it to English change as you move up? At the B1 step, you might be changing whole sentences in your head. You think, I want to say I am hungry, so you change that thought from your own language to English. You might even be changing word by word sometimes. By the time you reach B2, you are probably not changing full sentences anymore. You are probably changing smaller ideas or groups of words. Maybe you know a common phrase like how are you? And you use it without thinking about changing each word. But you might still change words when you want to say something more difficult. At C1, changing words from your own language happens very rarely. You are thinking directly in English. When you want to say something, the English words and phrases come to you easily, without you needing to go through your own language first. It's like your brain has made a direct road for English. Now, let's look at how natural speaking styles change. What sounds natural at a B2 step might sound a little different at C1, and the other way around. For example, at a B2 step, using common shortened words like I'm, your, it's, and don't sounds very natural. You might also use common phrases like a lot of, a bit, or kind of. You can connect ideas with simple words like and, but, and so. You might say, I wanted to go to the party, but I was too tired, so I stayed home. This sounds good and natural for a B2 speaker. However, at a C1 step, a speaker might use more advanced ways to connect ideas, making the speech even smoother. Instead of but I was too tired, so I stayed home, a C1 speaker might say, I had planned to go to the party, but I was feeling quite tired, which made me stay home instead. They might also use more advanced words or special phrases. For instance, instead of too tired, they might say worn out or exhausted. Instead of stayed home, they might say chose to stay in or decided not to go out. Using phrases like which made me or chose to adds a layer of naturalness that is typical of higher skill. On the other hand, if a C1 speaker were to only use very simple B1 or B2 phrases, it might sound a little unnatural, perhaps like they are trying to speak simply or as if they haven't fully developed their range. Imagine a very smart person talking like a child. It doesn't quite fit. So, at C1, naturalness also means using a wider range of expressions and sentence shapes well. It's about having many language tools and knowing how to use all of them. It's very easy to get stuck at a certain step. This happens when you stop trying to get better. For example, a learner might be at a B2 step for a long time. They can talk. They understand most things, but they still don't sound quite like a native speaker because they haven't practiced the specific skills needed to move to C1. They might be happy with their B2 words and sentence shapes, and they don't try to learn new special phrases or more complex ways to link ideas. They might be scared of making mistakes, so they stick to what they know. This is like being able to see the top of the mountain from a flat area, but not taking the final steps to climb it. This is why changing your practice is so important. The way you practice should match where you are on your language trip. If you are at the B1 step, your practice should focus on building a strong start. This means working on clear speaking, learning common everyday phrases, and practicing simple talks. Copying is excellent here. Copying means listening to a native speaker perhaps in a short, clear talk and trying to say exactly what they say, their rhythm, and how they say it. You could use simple talks from books or podcasts for beginners. The goal is to get comfortable with basic sentence shapes and common words. You want to make sure that when you say "I like pizza," it sounds clear and friendly. As you move to B2, you can start to use more difficult materials. You can watch TV shows with words on the screen, listen to podcasts for native speakers, and try to understand more detailed talks. Your copying practice can involve longer pieces of sound or video. You want to focus on how native speakers connect their ideas. Notice how they use words like however, therefore, in addition, or on the other hand. You will also want to start learning and using more common special phrases and verb phrases. The goal is to increase your smooth speaking and make your speech sound smoother and more varied. You are starting to truly think in English for longer periods. For C1 step learners, the focus changes to making those small differences better. You can study more difficult texts like movies, documentaries, or advanced articles. You can practice by copying smart speakers, paying attention to their jokes, their sarcasm, how they tell stories, and how they use very specific words. You might practice telling a summary of difficult articles or debating difficult topics. The goal here is to master the skill of sounding completely natural using language with exactness and style and understanding, and using cultural references. You are not just speaking English, you are living it through language. Let's think about a specific moment. I remember helping a student named Maria. Maria was a very smart woman from Spain and she had studied English for years. She was definitely at a strong B2 step. She could talk about her job as an engineer, understand news reports, and even hold her own in a debate. But when she spoke, it felt a little not smooth. She used correct grammar, but it didn't have that easy flow you hear from native speakers. One day, we were practicing a talk about a trip she had recently taken. She wanted to tell me about a funny situation at the airport. She said, I was in the line. My bag was very heavy. The man behind me, he said, that is a large bag. I said, yes, I have many things. It was perfectly understandable, but it wasn't natural. We worked on it. I asked her, how would you say that more smoothly? What would a native speaker say in that situation? We talked about how instead of I was in the line, she could say, I was standing in line or I was waiting in line. Instead of my bag was very heavy, she could say, my bag felt very heavy or I was struggling with my heavy bag. And instead of the man saying, that is a large bag, he might have said, wow, that's a big bag. Or looks like you've got a lot in there. Then we worked on her answer. Instead of a simple yes, I have many things, we explored options like, yeah, I packed for a while. Or tell me about it. I seem to have brought half my house with me. These phrases are common, they have a bit of humor, and they make the talk feel more alive. By focusing on these small, natural phrases and how sentences connect, Maria's speaking began to change. She wasn't just saying the right words, she was using them in a way that felt real and flowed beautifully. She was moving from just knowing English to speaking English naturally. Her thinking was changing. She started to notice these patterns herself and began to use them in her talks. She was no longer changing words from her own language, she was expressing herself. Understanding these different steps helps us see that the goal of natural English speaking is always changing, always becoming more refined. It's about using the language with more ease, correctness, and style. It's about sounding like yourself, but in English. Now that we understand how natural speaking skills grow across different steps, it's very important to know that the start for all these steps is built on steady, good practice. In the next section, we will look at the most powerful practice methods that will help you move faster on your trip to sounding like a native speaker, no matter where you are in your learning. 3. Tips for speaking like a native English speaker. Many people learning English feel this way. You know the rules for grammar. You have learned many new words. But when you try to talk, it feels wrong. Your words come out slowly, like building with toy blocks. They do not flow like water. You might think in your own language and try to find the exact English word for every idea. This is where you start to go beyond just knowing English. You begin to truly speak it. This is about finding a natural speed and an easy flow. This makes you feel comfortable and makes others understand you, like the people you hear on TV or in movies. I remember when I first started teaching, I had a student, let's call her Sophia. Sophia was very smart. She could write school papers that were perfect in every way. Her words were also very good. But when she spoke, it was like listening to someone read a perfect sentence slowly. She would stop between each word. Her voice did not change much in sound. One day, we talked about her weekend. She wanted to say she was very tired because she stayed up late. She said, very clearly, I was very tired because I did stay up late. It was correct English, but it did not sound like how most people would say it. I saw she was upset. She knew the words, but the sound was not quite right. That moment was important for Sophia and for me as a teacher. We knew that learning to speak English naturally was not just about learning more words or perfect grammar. It was about using the ways native speakers talk. It was about understanding the quick ways and the small changes that make English sound smooth and easy. This is called natural English speech, speaking in a way that sounds like a native speaker. It means using common short words, everyday phrases, and speaking without always thinking in your own language. It is about catching the rhythm and flow of real talks. Let's look at some simple ways to make your English sound more like the English you hear every day. A big difference between English learners and natural English speech is the use of short words and faster speaking. Native speakers are very good at making words and phrases shorter. They usually do not say I am going to the store. Instead, they say I'm going to the store, or even more relaxed, I'm gonna go to the store. These shorter forms are not wrong. They are a key part of how English flows. Think about this. You not becomes don't. Is not becomes isn't. I will not becomes I won't. These are simple short words. Most learners learn them quite fast. But there are many other small changes that happen all the time. For example, want to often sounds like wanna. Going to sounds like gonna. Could have can sound like coulda. What are you doing? Might become what you doing. Why do native speakers do this? It makes speaking faster and smoother. When you talk to a friend, you do not want to sound like you are giving a formal talk. You want to sound relaxed and normal. Practicing these short words and faster speaking is very important. Try listening to talks and finding the shorter sounds. Then try saying them yourself. Start with the easy ones like don't and isn't. Then try the more relaxed ones like wanna and gonna. Do not worry about sounding perfect at first. The goal is to start hearing them and trying them. It is a step to speaking with that easy rhythm. Another very important part of natural English speech is using phrasal verbs and idioms. These are groups of words that make a new meaning. They are made of a verb and a small word like up, down, for, or on. Examples are give up, look for, turn on, or find out. They are used all the time in everyday English. You will not find these in a basic word list because their meaning is not clear from the single words. For example, give up does not mean to hand something over. It means to stop trying. Look for means to search for something. Native speakers use phrasal verbs all the time. If you want to say you are searching for your keys, you would say, I'm looking for my keys, not, I am searching for my keys. If you decide to stop a habit, you give it up. If you want to learn more about something, you find out about it. Idioms are like this. They are phrases where the meaning is different from the words themselves. For example, it's raining cats and dogs does not mean animals are falling from the sky. It means it is raining very hard. Break a leg is something you say to wish someone good luck, especially before they perform. The best way to learn phrasal verbs and idioms is not to memorize long lists. Instead, try to learn them as they are used. When you watch a movie or listen to a podcast, notice when a phrasal verb or idiom is used. Try to understand its meaning from the situation. Then try to use it yourself in a similar situation. You can also find lists of common phrasal verbs and idioms online, but always try to see them used in sentences. This helps you understand how and when to use them, which is very important for natural English speech. Let's talk about those small words that native speakers add to their talks. These are called fillers or connectors. Words like well, you know, like, so, anyway, actually, and right. At first, learners might think these words are just extra and not needed. But they play a very important part in making speech sound natural. Well can be used to start a sentence. It is especially used when you are thinking or need a moment to get your thoughts ready. Well, I think we should go now. You know, is often used to check if the person listening understands or agrees. Sometimes it is just a pause. It was a really difficult test, you know. Like is used in many ways. It can mean similar to. But in casual talk, it is often used as a filler word like I was like really surprised. Or it can start a thought or what someone said and she was like, I can't believe it. So can connect ideas or show a result. It was late, so I went home. Or it can start a new topic or show a change. So what did you do after that? Anyway, is used to change the subject or go back to the main topic after talking about something else. We were talking about the movie, but anyway, let's get back to the plan. Actually, can be used to share a surprising fact or to fix a mistake in understanding. I thought it would be easy, but it was actually very hard. These words help native speakers manage the flow of a conversation. They act like signals. They can show you are thinking, that you are moving to a new idea, or that you want the other person to agree. Using them, even a little, can make your speech sound less sudden and more like a normal, back-and-forth talk. The key is to use them naturally, not too much. Listen to how native speakers use them. Notice when they pause and add a well or a so. Then try to use them yourself, especially when you talk about everyday topics. More than just the words, the sound of English is very important for natural English speech. This includes rhythm and the rise and fall of your voice. Native English speakers do not speak with the same sound all the time. Every word does not have the same loudness and importance. Instead, they stress certain words and parts of words. Their voice goes up and down. This creates a musical sound, or rhythm, that is very typical of the language. Think about how you ask a question. In English, the voice often goes up at the end of a yes/no question. Are you coming? Voice goes up. But for a question that starts with who, what, where, when, why, or how the voice often goes down at the end. What time is it? Voice goes down. This pattern of rising and falling voice and stressing important words is called intonation. Why is this important? Because if you speak with a flat voice, your speech can sound not natural, like a robot, or even send the wrong feeling. For example, saying I'm fine with a flat voice might sound like you are not really fine or you are a bit bored. But saying I'm fine with a happier, higher voice can sound truly happy. How can you practice this? One great way is called shadowing. Find a recording of a native speaker talking naturally, a podcast, a scene from a movie, or a talk. Listen to a short part, maybe 10-15 seconds. Then play it again and try to speak at the same time as the speaker. Copy their rhythm, their voice changes, and even their pauses. Do not worry if you do not understand every word at first. Focus on the sounds and the music of their speech. Do this many times. You will start to learn the natural rhythm of English. Perhaps the biggest change towards natural English speech is to start thinking in chunks instead of single words. When native speakers talk, they do not usually build sentences word by word, changing each one. Instead, they process language in groups of words that are already put together. These are common phrases that fit together naturally. Think about phrases like a cup of coffee. You do not think of then cup then of then coffee. You know a cup of coffee is one thing. Other examples include, how are you doing? It's a pleasure to meet you. On the other hand, as soon as possible. Take care of yourself. When you learn to know and use these chunks, your speech becomes much smoother. You are not building sentences from nothing every time. You are using ready-made parts that fit together perfectly. This is the opposite of thinking in your own language and changing words. Instead of asking, what is the English word for? You start to think, what is the usual way to say to practice this? Start noticing these chunks when you listen to English. When you hear a phrase that sounds natural and is used often, try to remember it as a whole group of words. Write it down. Then try to use it in your own sentences. For example, instead of trying to say, I will arrive very quickly, you can learn the chunk as soon as possible and say, I'll be there as soon as possible. This takes practice, but it is one of the most powerful ways to make your English sound truly natural. So, what are the common problems learners have when they try to sound like natives, and how do these tips help? One big problem is being afraid to make mistakes. This makes people speak too slowly and carefully, which sounds not natural. By using short words, phrasal verbs, and chunks, you start to use the language more smoothly. This naturally makes your speech faster and sound less like you are reading. Another problem is focusing too much on perfect grammar and words, while ignoring the rhythm and flow. The tips on voice changes and shadowing help with this. They help you catch the musical sound of spoken English. And finally, the habit of changing words from your own language is a big problem. Thinking in chunks directly fights this. It helps you use ready-made phrases that sound natural. How can you practice these native-like ways of speaking well without sounding fake? The key is to be surrounded by the language and to use it in real situations. Do not just memorize lists of short words or idioms. Listen to them in real talks. Watch movies, listen to podcasts. 4. Learning new English words and grammar. Learning new English words and grammar can feel like gathering building blocks. You put them together, maybe in a pile, and then try to build something. But often, the building doesn't stand up well or it looks a bit stiff. This happens when we learn words and grammar rules alone, like memorizing a dictionary or a grammar book without seeing how people actually use those words and rules. Our goal in this book, remember, is to speak English in a way that sounds natural, like you're thinking straight, in English, not trying to translate. This means we need a different way to learn. Think about how you learned your first language. Did you sit with flashcards for apple and eat? Probably not. You heard apple when someone gave you one, or when you saw it in a story. You learned eat when you were hungry and someone said, "Let's eat." Words and grammar became real because they were linked to real life, to feelings, and to what was happening around you. This is where we need to put our effort for English. Context is king for vocabulary. Learning words from lists is like trying to understand a beautiful painting by only looking at single dots of color. You miss the whole picture. When you see a word in a sentence, a talk, or a movie, you learn much more than just its basic meaning. You learn how it's used. You see what other words it often goes with, what kind of feelings it carries, and in what situations people use it. This is what we mean by context. For example, instead of just learning the word happy, which is a good start, you might hear or read phrases like thrilled to bits. Now, thrilled to bits means very, very happy. But just knowing that isn't enough. When you see it in a sentence like, "She was absolutely thrilled to bits when she got the good news," you understand the feeling behind it. It's a stronger, more excited kind of happiness. You also see that it's often used with words like absolutely to make it even stronger. You might also hear over the moon, which means extremely happy, or happy as a clam, which is a more relaxed, old-fashioned way to say you're very pleased. When you learn these phrases in context, they stay with you better. They feel more natural because you've seen them used. Your brain starts to connect thrilled to bits with a specific kind of excitement, not just a general feeling of happiness. This is a big step toward speaking naturally. You're not just remembering a meaning, you're remembering a sound, a feeling, and a situation. Grammar as a tool for meaning, not just rules. Many learners see grammar as a set of strict rules they must follow perfectly. If they make a mistake, they feel like they've failed. But grammar isn't about being perfect. It's about being clear and saying exactly what you mean. It's a tool that helps you shape your thoughts into messages that others can understand. Native speakers don't think, "Okay, I need to use the past simple tense here because the action finished in the past." They just say it. Their brain automatically picks the right form because it's the way they've always expressed that idea. Let's look at something simple. I can go versus I could go. If you just know the rule that can is for ability and could is for possibility, you might stop there. But in natural conversation, the difference is much deeper. When someone says, "I can go," it usually means they have the ability and the permission, and they are likely to go. It's a statement of fact or what they plan to do. But "I could go" can mean many things. It might mean, "It's possible for me to go, but I'm not sure if I will." This is about possibility. I would be able to go if you wanted me to. This is about a situation that might happen. I could have gone yesterday, but I didn't. This is about a chance in the past that was missed. Or even, "I could go, but I don't want to." This is a polite way of saying no. See how much more meaning could carries. It often makes a statement softer, makes it more polite, or introduces a feeling of not being sure or depending on something. Native speakers use these small differences all the time to show subtle meanings, tone, and how they relate to others. Your job isn't just to know the rule, it's to understand why a native speaker would choose one form over another to get a particular message or feeling across. This is about understanding the purpose of grammar, not just its structure. Active learning over passive memorizing. Simply reading a book or listening to a podcast is helpful, but it's passive. To truly learn, you need to be active. You need to engage with the language. This means looking for patterns, trying to guess the meaning of new words from their surroundings, and most importantly, trying to use what you learn. One of the best ways to do this is to keep a special kind of notebook. Instead of a list of new words, Try keeping a natural phrases journal. When you hear or read something that sounds interesting, useful, or just different, write it down exactly as you heard. Or read it along with the sentence it was in. For example, instead of just writing difficult, you might write, "It was a bit of a tough call," meaning it was a difficult decision. "He's going through a rough patch," meaning he's having a difficult time. "That was a challenging task," meaning the task was difficult. By collecting these phrases, you're gathering ready-made pieces of natural English. You're not just collecting words, you're collecting how words are used together. When you find a new grammar point, don't just memorize the rule. Look for examples of it in real English. Notice how speakers use it. Then try to create your own sentences. It's okay if they're not perfect at first. The act of trying to form the sentence, even if you have to look up a word or check a grammar point, is where the real learning happens. It's like practicing a sport. You can watch a game all day, but you won't get better until you get on the field and try to play yourself. The power of chunks and collocations. This idea of collecting phrases leads us to something called chunks and collocations. A chunk is just a common group of words that often go together. A collocation is similar. It's words that frequently appear next to each other. Think about the word decision. What word do you most often use with it? Is it make a decision or do a decision? If you're translating from some languages, do a decision might seem logical. But in natural English, we always make a decision. Learning make a decision as one unit, as a chunk, is much more efficient than learning make and decision separately, and then trying to figure out how they fit together. Here are some more examples of collocations. We take a look, not make a look or do a look. We pay attention, not give attention, though give attention exists. Pay attention is the most common chunk for focusing. We have a shower, not take a shower, though take a shower is also used. Have a shower is very common. We break a promise, not snap a promise. When you start noticing and collecting these chunks and collocations, your speech becomes much smoother and more natural. It sounds less like you're building sentences piece by piece and more like you're pulling out pre-made, perfectly fitting parts. This is a main part of thinking in English. Your brain starts to recognize these chunks as single units of meaning, rather than individual words. Connecting new language to existing knowledge. Our brains are amazing at remembering things that are meaningful to us. If a new word or grammar point can be connected to something you already know, or to your own experiences, it will be much easier to recall and use. Let's say you're learning the phrase feeling under the weather. This means feeling a bit sick. If you remember a time you felt slightly unwell and someone said, "Oh, you look a bit under the weather," that personal memory will help you remember the phrase and its meaning much better than just seeing it in a textbook. Or, if you're learning about the past perfect tense like I had already eaten when he arrived, try to connect it to a real event in your past. Think about a time you did something before something else happened. I had already finished my homework before my friends called. This makes the grammar point relevant and personal. How can a learner actively look for and identify natural uses of new words and grammar in their daily English? Exposure listening, reading? This is a fantastic question, and the answer is all about becoming an active detective of language. You're not just consuming English, you're analyzing it. 1. Listen with intent. When you listen to podcasts, watch movies, or talk with native speakers, don't just try to understand the main idea. Listen for interesting phrases, unusual word choices, or grammar structures that sound smooth and natural. Ask yourself, why did they say it like that? 2. Read with curiosity. When you read books, articles, or even social media posts, highlight words or phrases that catch your attention. Look up words you don't know, but also look up words you think you know to see how they are being used in this specific context? Are they used with different prepositions? In a more formal or informal way than you expected? 3. Notice patterns. As you consume more English, you'll start to see patterns. You'll notice that certain verbs are often followed by certain prepositions, e.g., rely on, agree with. You'll notice that certain adjectives are commonly paired with certain nouns, e.g., heavy rain, strong coffee. Start making a mental note, or a physical note, of these recurring combinations. 4. Seek examples. If you learn a new word or a new grammar structure, don't just learn the definition or the rule. Actively look for examples of it in use. Type the word or phrase into a search engine followed by in a sentence or examples. Look at different sources, news articles, blogs, forums. This shows you the word or grammar in a variety of real-life situations. 5. Pay attention to emotion and tone. Native speakers use specific words and grammar to convey feelings and attitudes. Notice how certain phrases express excitement, disappointment, sarcasm, or politeness. For instance, using would can often make a request sound more polite. Would you mind closing the door? Is softer than close the door. What are the most effective, low-pressure ways for learners to try out new vocabulary and grammar in their own speaking or writing, even before they feel completely confident? This is where the magic really happens. Trying things out even imperfectly is crucial. The key is to make it low pressure so you don't get discouraged. 1. Talk to yourself. This sounds funny, but it's incredibly effective. Narrate your day. Okay, now I am going to make some coffee. I need to get the beans. I'm going to grind them. This smells good. Use the new words and phrases you're learning. If you mess up, no one hears but you, so you can just try again. 2. Write simple sentences. Start by writing 1 or 2 sentences using a new phrase or grammar point. If you learn thrilled to bits, write, I was thrilled to bits to see my friend. Then try to weave that sentence into a longer email or message. Conclusion. You have come to the end of this book. You did a great job to get this far. Finishing this book is a big step to speaking English more like someone who grew up speaking it. You now have the tools to speak better. Our goal was to help you stop translating words in your head. Translating word by word can make your English sound stiff. Instead, we focused on speaking English in a natural way. We learned how people who speak English every day use common phrases and talk smoothly. Most importantly, we helped your brain start thinking in English. This is how you build truly natural English speech. What does natural English speech sound like? It sounds easy, like your words come from your thoughts without you trying hard. When you speak naturally, you feel more sure of yourself. You can share your ideas better. Others understand you more easily, and you understand them better too. You can share your thoughts faster. It's about sounding like yourself in English, not like someone reading a book. Remember how we learned to use shorter words like it's and don't. These are important for natural English speech. We also learned common phrases that people use every day. These make your English sound real. Listening and repeating what you hear, or shadowing, is a great way to learn the rhythm and flow of natural English speech. This takes time and practice, but you are getting better. Your learning does not stop here. This book is your guide to natural English speech. The best way to get better is to keep practicing. Find chances to talk with people in English. The more you speak, the more you will learn common phrases and ways of talking. Keep listening to English music, watching movies, and reading things you like. Pay attention to how people speak, not just what they say. When you speak, try to use the ideas from this book. Focus on getting your message across, not on translating every word. Don't be scared to make mistakes. Mistakes help you learn and become more natural. There are extra lessons to help you practice more. Set new goals for yourself. Maybe you want to learn new phrases or feel comfortable talking about certain things. You now know how to speak English with confidence. You are on your way to speaking English not just correctly but naturally. Keep practicing and let your voice be heard. The world is ready for your natural English. Thank you for being with us. We wish you the best.